your Catholic Drive Time
with Joe McClane and EmilyiAlcaraz.
And joining us right now via Zoom chat, President of TFP in Italy, Mr. Julio Loredo. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Yeah, praise be to God. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot of news coming out of the Vatican, out of Europe. There's lockdowns apparently that are going back into play there. The AstraZeneca blood clot reports are on the rise around Europe. Of course, the suppression of the Holy Mass, of private masses, at least at the Basilica. Where does one start? I mean, and then there's the Pope's comments more recently. The New World Order is an issue. And then, of course, not blessing same-sex unions. Mr. Julio Loredo, where would you like to discuss in this hot mess of news articles?
Well, I can begin with Cardinal Burke's document very quickly because it's a real atomic bomb. It's a hydrogen bomb. And you know that it's causing trouble because media are not speaking about it. I mean, Catholic media are, of course, but I mean, the general media, the public media are not speaking about it. And that means that they don't like it. And there's something that they don't like in that document. Because you see, every priest in the world takes pride in having celebrated Mass at least once in the Vatican. So when we are speaking about prohibiting private masses in the Vatican, we're not speaking about Italian clergy. We're not speaking about European clergy. We're speaking about clergy from all over the world. Imagine an African priest that comes from I don't know where. He gets some money. He gets to pay his ticket to Rome. He comes to Rome. And he wants to celebrate Mass in St. Peter because St. Peter is the parish of all us Catholics throughout the world. So forbidding private masses in St. Peter is not only against universal church law, as Cardinal Burke says, but it's absolutely anti-pastoral. It's absolutely anti-merciful. So I really don't know what was in their heads. So much so that the document is absolutely illegal in its form and in its contents. It's an unsigned document with no number or no protocol number given by a Vatican body, the Secretariat of State, which has no authority whatsoever in the liturgical field and less authority in the Basilica of Saint Peter. For the Basilica of Saint Peter is the Cardinal Archpriest of Saint Peter, Cardinal Comastri, and for the liturgy is the Congregation for the Rites and the Discipline of the Sacraments, which is vacant because Cardinal Sarah just renounced. But anyway, it's a totally illegal document that causes much trouble even at a pastoral level. So this is a real hydrogen bomb that Cardinal Burke, who, remember, he was prefect of the Segnatura Apostolica, which means Attorney General of the Church. So he's speaking as a jurist. He's speaking, this document is not only doctrinally wrong, it's legally void, invalid.
Mr. Julio Loredo is our guest. He is the president of TFP in Italy. I think it was Bree Dale yesterday was saying that to this point, the Vatican hasn't actually officially commented or responded to any of the journalists' inquiries about the document. So some journalists like Edward Penton have said they have verified that it is an official document, but through anonymous sources, nothing official. What do you think that means? The fact that the Vatican isn't commenting on the article, on the new rule, the new policy, the new procedure. They're not responding to journalists asking questions about it. What do you think that's supposed to mean, Mr. Loredo?
Well, that's part of the way Pope Francis does things. He has broken with every single rule in the Vatican way of doing things. For example, never in the history of the Church has an interview written by a journalist, Scalfari, being incorporated into the papal documents in the Acta Apostolici Sedis, etc., etc. So I think it's just one further step of the way Pope Francis does things, which is absolutely out of the rules. So what we have to question itself. It's not so much that if this document is legal or is not legal, because it's an official document illegally issued, but on the concrete world, will it be applied as it says that it should be? And that will be very, very bad.
Let's transition to this other story about the Pope's comments on same-sex unions. According to an article published by The Blaze, he says the Vatican published a document on Monday saying that the Catholic Church would not bless same-sex unions, a statement that likely let down a number of Catholics who identify as LGBTQ. I guess those of us who have hold the Church's teaching, this is not news to us. Of course the Church can't bless same-sex unions. Why do you think this is such a monumental story at this point, Mr. Julio Loredo?
It's a monumental story because, first of all, it was issued by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. We know that officially the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, having as its mission to uphold Catholic orthodoxy, is directly under the Pope. So any document the congregation issues has to be undersigned by the Pope. In that sense, it is a papal document. Second, it comes in a moment where the LGBTQ, et cetera, because if you stop at the Q, you are discriminating against the other 99 or 100, I don't know, genders that they've come up with. So be careful to say LGBTQ because you're being discriminative.
Hold that thought, Mr. Julio Loredo. We got to go to a quick break. We're going to be right back. We're going to have a conversation. We'll continue our conversation, rather, with Mr. Julio Loredo. He is the president of TFP. Emily, I know, before we jump back on with Mr. Julio, recently there was a comment by, you remember when the Vatican discovered that donor dollars sent to the Vatican for Peter Spence was used to fund the movie The Rocket Man, a man who is openly gay and living in inappropriate relationships. Donor dollars from all over the world was used to fund that film.
Right. So the film Rocket Man was the biopic about Elton John's life and about his quote-unquote marriage to his husband. And he actually tweeted about this. He tweeted, "How can the Vatican refuse to bless gay marriages because they are sin, yet happily make a profit from investing millions in Rocket Man, a film which celebrates my finding happiness from my marriage to David. Hashtag hypocrisy."
It does seem that, doesn't it? It seems rather confusing. How can we in one way support it by giving millions of dollars to it and the other way say we're not going
That's such a valid question, and I would like an answer to it as well.
Well, let's ask Mr. Julio Loredo. Mr. Julio Loredo, welcome back to our show. Before we went to the break, you were commenting on the Pope's comments on not blessing same-sex unions, but the Rocket Man seems to make a legitimate point here. It seems hypocritical coming out of the Vatican.
Not only the Rocket Man, but facts. For example, why are homosexual couples normally received in the Vatican? I remember a year or two ago, the homosexual couple was refused blessing, quotations, in Valencia, in Spain. And the couple that was refused the blessing went to the Vatican, and they were blessed in the Vatican by Pope Francis. Blessing. I'm not speaking about marriage. And this was read as a rejoinder to the bishop who had refused that blessing. So this document that was published yesterday really flies in the face of so many other things that the Vatican is doing.
I still go back to the controversial elements of this, and it seems rather crazy to me that so many people would be offended that the Pope would even... I mean, this was supposed to be the cool Pope. This was supposed to be the Pope... I remember when he was elected, and I was listening to some commentary from some people who are very liberal, and they were saying, you know, for the first time in my Catholic life, I feel like the Church is with me instead of against me. There was real anticipation for His Holiness Pope Francis to support same-sex unions. And yet now that he's come out and does not support this, it seems rather peculiar how much vitriol he's receiving in the news about it. But at the same time, why is it that Catholics, whether they're liberals or conservatives, why do Catholics seem to forget the Church has teaching that it does not have the authority to change no matter what it feels about it, no matter what the politics are of the day, no matter what the majority of people say they ought to be, conservative or liberal. Why are we always so surprised when the church has to defend church teaching?
You touched a very important point, a central point. If you read the document of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, it says the church does not have the authority to bless same-sex marriage, because the church cannot legislate against God's law. It cannot legislate against natural law, which is God's law embedded in nature. So the church doesn't have the authority to do such a thing. And I'm very pleased with the document. But as I said, this is a pastoral pontificate, so we have to see concretely in the concrete fields what's going to happen.
Let's transition to another story. Let's talk about the Pope's comments on the New World Order. This is an article by Breitbart.com. It says Pope Francis insists in a new book, things will never be the same in a post-pandemic world, calling instead for the establishment of a new world order. Mr. Julio, I always get nervous when I hear anybody call for a new world order. Have you heard this statement out of the Pope or similar statements in the past? I know he's made similar statements in the past. When you hear him say these things, what do you think, Mr. Julio Loredo?
Well, I think two things. First of all, I would like a new world order. I would like a restoration of Christendom.
Amen.
Yes.
And that's new in the sense that it's new with regards to what we're having today. It's world, hopefully, and it's an order. It's the only real order in the universe because it's the order according to God's law. Now, we're not speaking about that order. We're speaking of a new order, which is the one being proposed by the World Economic Forum, by the United Nations, by the powers to be in the world. And it also makes me nervous when not only the Pope, but any ecclesiastical figure goes with that, because the church has to be a sign of contradiction. It's not the church that has to follow the world, but the church that has to teach the world. Our Lord Jesus Christ didn't say go and dialogue with all the peoples, etc. Say go and teach all the peoples. Whosoever will believe will be saved, and whosoever will refuse you will be condemned. I mean, that's the role of the church. When I see a church authority going along with a plan that is obviously not Catholic and even anti-Catholic in some of its aspects, I also get very, very worried.
Right. And actually, I remember reading Familiaris Consortio for a university project, and St. John Paul II also uses the term New World Order in that document. Of course, if you're talking about Christendom or something like that, it's not necessarily a bad concept, but the problem with that is that the phrase has such a bad connotation now, especially in our day and age. Adrian, did you have something to say?
Yes, I was just wondering, with 5 minutes left in the show, I was wondering, how do we fight against this revolution we're having in the church today, in the culture today, but especially when it's in the church? It seems like we all have this initial reaction, which is a right reaction, to want to give deference to our bishops, to our priests, and of course to the Holy Father. But with so many confusing and chaotic statements coming around from bishops, the Holy Father, from our parish priests, how do we fight against the revolution in this manner?
Well, in fact, it's very easy. There's a psalm. You were speaking about God judging or not judging just before I came into the show. Well, there's a psalm that says, speaking to God, "Ut vincas cum judicaris." You will vanquish when you judge. Because God doesn't judge. He is justice. Things are defined in relation as to how they relate to Him. If they relate in the correct way, they are automatically judged in the positive way. If they relate to Him in a negative way, they're automatically condemned. So God is. And what we have to be is we have to just be Catholics We have to be what we have always been for 2,000 years. And as Joe said, we shouldn't go with the last speech, with the last thing. The church has 2,000 years. The church has a magisterium, which has 20 centuries. And we have to keep on sticking to that magisterium. We have to keep on sticking to that column. And it's things that will define themselves in relation to that column, not the other way around. So just be Catholics, and that's it.
We have just a couple of minutes left in our conversation with Mr. Julio Loredo, president of TFP in Italy, Tradition, Family, and Property. Real quick, can I get you to comment on the two things: the lockdowns that are happening again in Italy? What is the impact on the people there? And then these reports of blood clots related to AstraZeneca and these countries all over Europe starting to suspend that particular COVID vaccine. What are your thoughts on those two? With just a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, well, my own personal opinion on the AstraZeneca thing is that it's more political than medical, because there just been 6 cases of thrombosis in more than 2 million vaccines. So that's medically absolutely nothing. So I read in this laws that are being given not only in Italy but in Europe against AstraZeneca. I read a political motivation against Great Britain, perhaps a retaliation for Brexit. I don't know, but medically speaking, and I've studied medicine, I've spoken with several doctors, said that medically speaking, 6 cases in 2 million is absolutely nothing. So it's not through medical reasons that they are doing this. Now, as for the lockdowns, here in Italy, we starting yesterday, we went back into the red zone. So it's a hard lockdown, and Italy is suffering a lot. And I don't know how longer can it stand it. Whereas countries that are using a very, very different approach are going right ahead with no problem.
Do you think we'll have an in-person Easter in the Vatican this year?
No, because the lockdown goes all the way to Easter. Thanks God, the masses haven't been suspended as they were in last March and April. But very, very few people are attending masses because of the fear of getting the virus.
All right. That's going to do it for our conversation with Mr. Julio Loredo, president of TFP in Italy. Thank you, sir, for being on our program. God love you and God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you all.
Have a great day. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. Thank you for being on the show with us this hour. Very grateful to you. If you can join us in the next hour, we'd surely love to have you. Of course, our game show happens in the next hour. It's a lot of fun. You learn something new about your faith, and you might even win a very cool prize. All of that coming up in the next hour. If you can join us either on the radio or on one of our live video feeds, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you can find all the links to those over on our website, grnonline.com/CDT. grnonline.com/CDT. God love you. God bless you. And we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.